Good afternoon, Masala Khairi. Welcome along to this webinar all about screen-free play. It's me, Lorraine, and today I'm going to help you look at ways to get smart with screen time for your children. I'm going to give you some top tips for screen-free play and, of course, lots of screen-free play ideas for you to put into practice straight away. Before we start, I'd just like to say once more a huge thank you to the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority for making this Parenting in a Pandemic and Beyond initiative a reality. So a huge thank you to them. The webinar will have a mix of activities. It will include a poll for you to vote on. There'll be some interactive questions and answers, and we're going to try and do an activity or two together as well today. So I hope you will find the next hour enjoyable. Now, I know that if you have young children around the house, it can be really difficult to try and concentrate for more than a couple of minutes at a time. So please don't worry. If you miss anything during this session, it will be recorded and it will be available a little later for you to be able to access and perhaps watch when things are a little bit quieter for you. So please don't worry if you miss any part of the session today. So I'd just like to begin by sharing my screen and coming up with and explaining just a little bit about the aims for today. So the aims for today, first of all, are to give you the confidence to be able to introduce screen-free play at any time with your children. Of course, I'm going to be providing you with lots of easy screen-free play ideas to get you started, and that's for children of all ages, really, from the young through to sort of 10, 11 years of age. And also, I hope I'm going to help you have just a little bit better understanding of how to get smart with your child's screen time. Now, thank you to everyone who was able to answer the question before the webinar. And that question was, how concerned are you about the amount of time your child or children are spending on screens? And screens could be tablets, smartphones and TV. And I suppose in a way it reflects why many of you will be here today. Over 60% of you said that you were very concerned about the amount of time that your child is spending on screens, and then the rest of you were saying you were quite concerned, and there was no one at all who said I'm actually not concerned. So as I say, I think that does reflect the times in terms of the times that we're living in, and the fact that technology in particular is such a part of our lives. And you know, that isn't going to change. Screens are here, and we will be using screens for all sorts of reasons, whether that's entertainment, to communicate, and of course to learn, for education as well. And increasingly schools are using that, and particularly during the current COVID situation, where a lot of children, including those younger ones, will be doing virtual learning as well. Now, perhaps at home, it might well be that screens are a very convenient way for you to just keep your child occupied just for a little bit to enable you to get on and get some jobs done. And as a mum, I completely understand that, and I have absolutely done that myself with my own son. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's the first thing to say. Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. What's important is to try and get a balance between the screen time versus the screen-free time. And it's very easy over the course of a day for the balance to tip in favour of screen time. So that's something we're going to be looking at. Now, if I just bring up my next slide for you. Go. Okay, so you'll see on here a number of different quotes from 5 different organisations. And over the last few years in particular, there have been a number of different views on how screen time can affect children's development. And the views range from sort of saying there should be absolutely no screen time for children at all under the age of 3, through to say a maximum of 2 hours per day, obviously not all at the same time, being acceptable for children aged 3 to 5 years. So you can see the difference in terms of what the different organisations are saying, and it's no wonder as parents we're sort of not really sure, you know, what to believe really. In terms of what we mean by screen time simply refers to the amount of time someone spends looking at digital displays on computers, on tablets, iPads, smartphones, but also that includes the television as well. And I think a lot of people forget about the television. I know it sounds a bit strange, but that's a screen too, and that all counts towards screen time. And you'll see on here there was an early landmark study from the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, which actually began a couple of years ago now, back in 2018. And basically, as a result of that, they came back and said, you know, what we're seeing is that where children from sort of age 3 upwards are spending more than 2 hours a day on screen time activities, they were, as a general rule, scoring much lower on things like language and thinking tests. And that was quite a landmark study really, that was carried out, as I say, by the National Institutes of Health. Now, although there are differing opinions on sort of what you know, how long children can spend on screens and so on, there are a number of different areas that most of these organisations and researchers actually do agree on. So I just wanted to run through those quickly. And the first one is about sleep time and disruption to the sort of biological clock. And the blue light that emits from screens, particularly here I'm talking about sort of iPads and smartphones, they can absolutely disrupt sleep and the biological clock for your child. Now, it can be avoided by making sure that at least 1 hour before your child goes to bed, they don't have any screen time. And of course, these days, there are quite a lot of phones which will, some of the more recent phones have something called a night shift option, which reduces the level of blue light emissions sort of after sunset, really. So that's the first thing they generally agreed on. The second one was to do with eating habits. And what they found was that children tend to overeat, or they certainly don't focus on what they're eating when they're using screens. And I have to say that's the same for me and other members of my family and friends that I know. You tend to sort of have a snack by the side of you, you're feeling a little peckish, and you're on your screen or you're playing a game, and you're not focusing at all on what you're actually eating. And finally, the third thing they agreed on was that actually, as a general rule, it's important for families to negotiate the screen time limits. And obviously that will be based on particular needs within your family and the particular setup within your family, and taking into account how screens are currently being used. So it could be that, you know, children are using screens and staying physically active, or they may, you know, there may be no interruption to sort of sleep or no disruption to eating or whatever. So it really does depend. And that's all very well, but you know, how do you make those decisions as a parent in terms of, you know, what you do in terms of negotiating the amount of time that your child spends online? So I am going to be covering this. Obviously, as I said, I'm going to be covering lots of screen-free play ideas for you. But I wanted to just get a feel for those of you who are on the live session at the moment, for what your concerns are about your child's screen time. So I'm going to have, I'll just share my screen again, which seems to be working well at the moment. So the question I'd like to ask you with a poll, which will be coming up in just a minute, is what are your concerns? Lots of options here. You don't have to choose one if you've got multiple concerns. It could be about the amount of time they're spending, the type of games, the fact that it's just become a habit, or maybe you've got particularly younger children who are having tantrums if you try and take the screen away from them. It may be that you're having difficulty finding alternative screen-free activities that your child is interested in, and also it could be interfering with things like sleep and also eating habits. habits. So we're going to bring up a poll now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and a poll is going to come up. And what I'd like you to do, there we go, is for you to just click on and vote. You can do this in real time right now and vote, and we can watch it change and see just what the issues are that you have in terms of the concerns about your screen time. So as I say, over 60% of you actually said that you were very concerned about the amount of time your child is spending on screen. So I'd like to know just a little bit more about that. If you can vote now, please, that would be great. So you can vote for as many options as you like. Someone's already voted. We can't see who it is. We can't see your names or anything like that. It's completely anonymous. So if you have any problems, just raise your hand. If you've got any problems voting, please just raise your hand and we'll see if we can sort that out for you. Our votes are coming in now. Here we go. So it's fairly even at the moment between the amount of time they're spending. Tantrums or complaints. Yeah, the minute you try and take that away, you'll get some screaming tantrums or lots of complaints and moans about trying to stop the screen time. And then difficulty finding enjoyable screen-free activities. Sometimes it feels like the only thing your child's ever happy with is playing the games on the screen, isn't it? So I've got some great ideas for you to try during this session. So, oh gosh, we've got lots more coming in now. Right, so there are people who are obviously concerned about interfering with sleep, absolutely, and that is a concern. Certainly that's something that the researchers brought up as well. What games they're actually playing, yeah, and it's becoming habit as well. Yeah, okay, so we've had quite a few of you voting. I'm going to give it another sort of half a minute or so. We usually take it up to about 2.5 minutes just to give you a chance to vote. As I say, you can pick as many as you like, so you know, any or all of these, that's fine for you to select. Just pipping on the top at 67%, we've got the amount of time spent on screens, which, you know, I know is quite an issue, isn't it? Yeah, okay, there we go. And that's sort of neck and neck with tantrums or complaints. Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay, right, so we're about 2.5 minutes in on the poll, so I won't spend too much longer on that. So basically what we're looking at, because I want to sort of try and make sure that I'm gearing this to helping you overcome some of these concerns and challenges. So really we're looking at the amount of time spent on screens and tantrums or complaints when you're trying to stop the screen time, and then obviously the rest are sort of fairly even. And I can certainly give you some guidance on this, well, on all of these really. So thank you very much. We're going to end the polling now. I'm sure we can save that somewhere. There we go. Lovely. Okay. So smashing, that's great. So I'm sure I can help you with this. There will be, I don't think I said it at the beginning, there's always an opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to try and make sure I've got some time at the end to pick up any questions if you want to ask them as we go along, and then what I'll do is pick them up at the end and then just run through the questions. So if you've got particular questions that you feel not getting answered as we go along, then I will go through them at the end and make sure that every question is answered. So thank you so much for getting involved in that polling. That's absolutely fantastic. So as we've already said, technology, screen time, it is a part of everyday family life. But it doesn't mean that that can't be meaningful or stimulating. And sometimes, believe it or not, screen activities can actually encourage screen-free activities. And I'm going to give you some examples of those shortly. So I have some top tips for families to follow to help you get smart with the screen time. So I'm going to share again. And here we go. So here's some top tips for you. Now, just to say as well, there is quite an extensive handout that's available to you at the end of this session. So all these top tips will also be on the handout as well. So the first thing to say is to look at choosing educational options over what we call sort of pure entertainment. So the first thing to do is look at the kind of screen activities that your child is doing and try to choose those which aren't just about sort of pure entertainment. So for example, games which require decision making, determination and tenacity, they're really good, you know, for your child's brain. So they've got to work out which way to turn, where do they place the next block. They may have to progress through increasingly difficult layers of the game for it to be beneficial. And there may also be things like virtual worlds, perhaps certainly for older children, virtual worlds where characters are created and you make decisions for those characters, and there might be consequences for those decisions that you make. All those kinds of games, they're not just about pure entertainment. You know, they've got that educational slant to them. They've got that interactivity where you are having to make decisions. So it's a very, very interactive process. And that is actually a good use. You know, it's quite a smart way to use screen time for a little while. If you think about it, and I use this term a lot, if you think about it in terms of a balanced screen diet, what we're looking at there is, if you think it in relation to a food analogy, 200 calories from a piece of cake is not the same as 200 calories from a healthy salad. So if we look at this in terms of screen time, 1 hour of watching videos for pure entertainment is not the same as 1 hour of, say, creating digital art. So using a screen to do that. So take some time to look at the kinds of apps and games that your child has on their tablet or on their phone, and look at trying to get a balance in favour of those needing more educational interactivity. The second point is to try and make screen time as interactive as you can as part of a family. Now, that might be that you sit down and have a movie night and sit down and watch the TV, and you chat, make sure you talk about what you're seeing or review a film afterwards. But it could be that you sit for part of the time with your child while they're playing a game, and you can try and encourage them to give you feedback and discussion. And it might be interactions such as, I wonder how you could move that square to the other side. So it's encouraging sort of real world interaction as they go along with their games. So playing games together, and even getting them to teach you how to play games is also another really good way to support their communication skills. So you could play a bit dumb and go, no, haven't got, and I do this with my son. I say to him, haven't got a clue. You'll have to show me how to play it. And of course, that's great, because then they have to explain, they have to use their communication skills and so on. So make that screen time as interactive as you can as a family. Now, I've mentioned about this already, watching TV programs together and then talking about them. That's talking about them afterwards particularly is very good for children's critical thinking skills as well. So that's a great thing to do. And this is absolutely key, which is building screen time around other activities. And what tends to happen is we try and fit other activities around the screen time, and the screen time becomes the dominant time. So we're trying to reverse that basically. If you think about, you know, your child has 1 hour of screen time, how are you going to balance that out with, say, 1 or even better, 2 hours of screen-free time? So working screen time around screen-free activities and not the other way around is the way to go. Now, it is important to agree and stick to very clear boundaries as to when everyone is screen-free, and I'm afraid that does include us as adults as well. Now, some of the obvious times when you wouldn't really want to be on your phone or on your tablet would be those sort of transitional times for children, perhaps when you're taking them to school or when you've just got home from work. Those are important times for a family to reconnect, not actually sit with our heads down sort of on our screens. So meal times, meals, whether you're at home or eating out, are really important times where screen time should be discouraged. And you need to agree that as a family and think about, you know, what will happen when those boundaries are broken and the consequences of that. Penultimate one, so this links into the concerns that I know some of you have got around snacking during screen time. There's been a lot of evidence that when we are on screens, we are not thinking about what we're eating. So the best thing to do is try not to combine the two, if at all possible. So try to avoid eating and screen time, so snacking and screen time. But if you do that, then think about your child's overall diet plan and make the snacks as healthy as you can. So things like breadsticks, pieces of fruit. You can make things like fruit kebabs, which are really easy to eat when you're playing on a screen. So ideally, try not to mix the two, but if you can, then think about some healthy snack alternatives. And then finally, finding ways to protect sleep time. Now, I know there were one of two of you who said you were concerned about the way in which screen time is affecting your child's sleep. And the general consensus is that avoiding screen time for at least, so that's at least 1 hour before bedtime, is the best way to avoid sleep disruption. So those are some top tips. Other suggestions for using screens in a smart way. So I've got some great ideas here, and I think most of these are on the handout. A couple of them might not be. Use the tech, so take the screens and the technology outdoors by using it for family activities, which sort of stimulate interaction and conversation between you. So rather than just saying, right, we're not having any screen time at all, you're using it in a different way. And geocaching, which is going on digital treasure hunts, and I know in the UAE, you've got some really interesting digital treasure hunts available for children of all ages there, because I had a little look myself, and it's something we do as a family. We geocache. And it's a great way to get involved as a family together and use the technology and use the screens, but in a very active way. You could perhaps make a video together, particularly during holiday time. Plus, there are also some wonderful apps. So, for example, for stargazing, you've got a great children's app there called Ready, Jet, Go, and it requires them to interact in real time with the real world in terms of what they see in the sky above them. Finding apps which help your child make the connection between online and the real world is also a really great way to get smart with screen time, and something that, you know, they'll enjoy. And I've got two great examples here. Now, the first one is Foldify, and I've got a link to that also on the handout. Now, this is amazing. This is where you can create animals online, and then you print them out, cut and fold them to play with them in real life. So you use the app to create amazing kind of animals, and then you print and cut them out and play with them in real life. So it's a really neat little app, but it brings the link between the virtual world and the real world together. And the other one, which we've used quite a lot at home here, is Quiver. Now, Quiver is a great kind of science STEM app as well. What this does is you get a child to could do their drawings on paper, and then through the app you scan it through, and it completely brings their drawings to life. It is absolutely amazing. My son has done it himself with birds, and he's drawn these pictures of birds, and then he's had them flying around all over the place within the app. And it is amazing to see a drawing on a sort of 2D piece of paper completely come to life in 3D. So that's a fantastic app as well. Like a lot of apps, they have a certain amount for free, and then there's a sort of paid version, but even the free versions are absolutely fantastic. So those are some really great ways for you to get smart with screen time. Now, I know some of you have talked about and mentioned that you're concerned about having tantrums and complaints when it comes to actually removing the screen or the tablet, the iPhone, or whatever it is from your child. And the key for this is to look at negotiating screen time. So I've got some tips and strategies to talk about, which I hope will help you look at ways to negotiate screen time a little bit better. And it is one of the things that most experts agreed on, that it's up to families to negotiate their screen time with children. As I said before, that's all very well, but how do you go about doing that? Now, whether or not you choose to restrict screen time for your child is really up to you. It's very much, you know, your own decision, and by how much as well. But the general consensus is that, you know, once you get over 2 or 3 hours of screen time, particularly for younger children, there are those detrimental effects on children's development, health and well-being. So trying to keep it sort of 2 hours or under a day is great. But we've got to look at negotiating screen time. And how do you do that? Well, it does depend on the age of your child. So the best approach, you know, I just talked earlier about that balanced screen diet. This is a really good way to start a conversation with your family, because most children will understand about healthy eating now, or certainly they're increasingly starting to learn and understand about that. And you could begin by talking about the fact that as technology and screens are all around us, just as we need to make healthy choices about food, so we need to make healthy choices about screens as well. So we need to have a balanced food diet and a balanced screen diet. That's one way of starting that conversation. Now, for older children, you can talk with them. So what I suggest you do here is a little tip, is to have in your own mind what you think is a reasonable allowance. So how long do you feel over the course of a day are you happy for your child to be on screens? So it might be, let's say you have 2 hours. So you say, over the course of a day, I'm happy if my sort of slightly older children have 2 hours of screen time. So what you need to do is to talk with them and ask them, get them thinking and saying, well, what do you think? What do you think is a reasonable amount of time? And what you're doing there is basically going to start that negotiation process, okay? So they're probably going to come up with, well, 4 hours or 5 hours. And obviously that's going to be way out in terms of what you're looking for. So we're going to try and bring that in a little bit so that we can get closer to something that you're generally happy with. So it is really a negotiation process with older children, and really, as I say, reaching that point where you're generally happy with you know, what you've agreed with. You can try it out and then come back and discuss it again. That's the whole point of negotiation. Now, this is much harder to do with younger children, because younger children generally will need something much more tangible to help them understand about limited time. So one of the things you can do is to use lollipop sticks, these kind of wooden sticks here, or if you haven't got those, straws, sort of paper straws can work just as well. And the idea with this is that one of these, for example, one of these or a straw, is exchanged for, say, 10 minutes of screen time. So they have a pot for the day. Obviously, there's an awful lot in here because I'm using this for something else in a minute. But let's say they have 4 or 5 sticks or 4 or 5 straws, and that's their allowance for the day. Okay, so when they're gone, that's it. Okay, and it kind of puts the onus on your child to, and this is great for them in terms of taking some responsibility. Now there might be a few tears initially where they haven't quite worked out what that means, so you know, you might have to be a little bit flexible to start, but once they realize that, once those 4 or 5 sticks have gone per 10 minutes or 20 minutes, half an hour, that's up to you to decide, but let's say each one's worth 10 minutes, then they just basically take, when they go, I'm going on the screen for 10 minutes now, and you can set a timer, whatever it is, and set a little clock alarm for them to go, and when those have gone, that's it, that's their screen time for the day. Now, the thing about this is, particularly for younger children, but the same for older children as well, is try and praise them. And when they make good decisions about screen time, or when they keep to the allowance, okay? Not in a patronising way, but just to say, that's amazing. You've done so well today managing your screen time, haven't you? And get them to talk about that a little bit. But as I say, for younger children, it really does need to be something tangible, so that they can start to understand what 10 minutes feels like on a screen, which for them won't feel like very long at all, probably, and also about using the allocation up. So that's definitely something that I would advise you to try. If you are going to bring in screen time allowances for your family, I'm afraid the bad news is that you will also need to include yourself in that. At the end of the day, you are your child's greatest role model, and how you are role modeling your screen time and your screen sort of behavior is absolutely crucial to making this work. So you will need to include yourself in your allocation. So you know, you can put together a sheet however you want to do it, and make that as transparent as possible. Obviously, you know, you might be doing some work, so that'd be a little bit different. If you've got older children who have to be on screens for education purposes, then you need to set that aside. But in terms of sort of just general screen use, you will need to include yourself in that screen time allowance, and decide and work out what your allowance is going to be, and try and stick to it. So I mentioned earlier about balancing screen time activities with other activities. So deciding, for example, that 1 hour of screen time equals, say, 2 hours of screen-free activities. And there are lots of things you can do screen-free wise, in terms of going for a walk, playing board games, reading, doing household tasks at all. And you can agree, again, that balance, how you're going to balance out screen time. So does half an hour equal 1 hour of screen free, or does half an hour equal 2 hours of screen free? You know, you can have those conversations as a family as well, and this will help your child, not just in terms of sort of, you know, negotiating as well, but also to help them learn how to self-regulate, and so that, you know, there's extra sort of benefits there as well. So we've looked at facts about screen time, negotiating limits as a family, and ways to get smart with your child using screens. So what I want to do now is get really practical and give you some really easy screen-free play ideas for you to try at home. So for the next sort of rest of the time, primarily, we're going to be looking at some practical screen-free play ideas. Now, I have written a book on this, and it's doing very well. It came out just in the middle of sort of lockdown here in the UK, which is Easy Screen-Free Plays, Play Ideas Children Will Love. And the handout that I've put together will include 12 easy screen-free activities children will love, and they're all taken from my new book. Now, the idea behind these activities is they need little or no planning. What you don't need is to have something that takes you about an hour to plan and put together, and by then you probably sort of, you and your child have probably given up. So they need to have very few resources, and the things that you do need to be things from around your house, around your home, and with very little planning. And those are the activities that I'm going to be looking at. So I'm going to share my screen with you again, hopefully. There we go. Okay, so that's That's the geocaching. There we go. Okay, so that's the front copy of my book. Now then, one of the first things you can do is to put together, so this is a great thing to do, is have a little box or a bag or something like that, and just start to collect little things as you go along, so it becomes a handy sort of resource. And I put together some of the things that you could start collecting right now at home. So pieces of paper, cardboard, buttons, jar lids, cling film, that sticky cling film, Ziploc bags, a pair of scissors, some marker pens, some rubber bands, some wooden pegs, some bits of material, old material that you don't need anymore, empty jam jar, chalks, all sorts of things that you'll kind of have around the house. So don't be afraid to chuck it all in the bag. It'll all get used at some point or another. So that's the kind of things that we're looking at in terms of everyday, sort of things, a paper towel, you might have an empty shoe box around, so glue, even I think we've got marshmallows in there as well. So all sorts of easy things that are around the house. So let's have a look at this. So this is one of the first Screen Fridays. It's called How Many Hands? Now then, this is a really great activity, and you know what you need for this? A piece of paper and a pencil. That's it. It can be done so quickly. The nice thing about this is active play, so it gets your child moving around, and it also introduces maths to them as well. So if you want your child to be learning a little bit of maths at the same time, this is a great activity to do. And this is a good one for young children, but a really good one for older children to do as well. And the idea is that your child cuts around, draws around their own hand, and also it's quite a good idea to draw around yours as well as an adult hand. And what they do is they walk around and they're going to measure all the different objects and different things around the house to compare the difference between the adult and child-sized hands. Now, if you've got an older child, they could even tabulate this and turn this into a sort of nifty little spreadsheet or something like that, where you can say, well, I've got a bookshelf, and the bookshelf takes 20 of my hands, but it only takes 5 of my mum's hands. And you can start logging things like that. So for younger children, it's just a lot of fun, great active play, but also introducing maths. For older children, it's introducing maths in a more extended way, and perhaps getting to do things like keeping logs and spreadsheets and things like that. So really simple, one simple thing you can do with a piece of paper and a pencil. How easy is that? Okay. The next one, with this one, you don't need anything at all, literally just observation skills. Your child just needs observation skills. And this is called Explore Your Day in Colour. Now then, if you have several children, the key with this is just to take it in turns, not every day, but perhaps once a week. They can decide that today is going to be a green day. What does that mean? Well, what it means is you go out and you explore that day in green. So it could be the first thing they do, they can either collect items from around your house. If you don't want things moved, they could just identify them and then perhaps draw them or write down what the items are. They could eat green food. Now that would be a challenge for some children, I'm sure, my son included, with certain green vegetables, but you can see here we've got some lovely examples of green food there that they could eat. They could look for green insects or animals. If you don't have much of a garden, or you live in an area where there aren't many green insects or animals, then this could be something that you may need to use a screen for. But that's a great way to show that you're using the screen in a very smart way, just to look something up for this activity. You could take photographs. They could take photographs, or even better, draw pictures of green flowers or green objects. And of course, they could paint a green picture. So you get the idea. And basically, it's what colour is it going to be today? What colour is it going to be tomorrow? And let someone else choose. And as I say, maybe not do that every day, but have once a week. Wednesday could be your colour day. And take it in turns for children to choose which colour they're going to explore their day in. So really, really simple. screen-free idea. Now then, this one, I'm hoping this is going to work. We're going to have a little go at this together, I hope. So this activity is called Box the Dots. Now I have to say, some of you may be familiar with this. I know of children that have just literally sat for 2 hours and played this game. It is that sort of engaging. Now we haven't got that long, but what I'm hoping is we're going to play it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just temporarily stop my screen share, and then I'm going to bring it up again, and this time I am going to bring up a whiteboard. So let me just check and make sure. I'm hoping this will work. Here, right, okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do is we are going to have a game now. If I can have someone raising their hands in a minute who's happy to play the game with me, that would be great. So I'm just going to hide the names of the people who are annotating so that we don't see who is who. So if you haven't done this before in terms of an interactive whiteboard, what we've got boxes here with dots in. It's as simple as that. And up on your screen, either on the top or the bottom of your screen, if you're on a mainstream computer, you will view something called options for annotations, and then you open annotations, and then you can start doing the annotations with me. And when you open the annotations box, what happens is it should come up with several options: text, draw, stamp, spotlight, eraser, and format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to draw. I'm hoping you can all see this. I'm going to select the straight line, and mine's going to be in a pink color, but you can change it under format to blue, orange, whatever you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line here. If you can see that, there we go. So my line is pink. Now, the purpose of this game is to basically complete the, you're not allowed to go diagonally, but vertically and horizontally, draw a line between the dots to complete a square. And if your line completes a square, then you put your initials, or in this case, well, what we'll do is we'll use the little stamp option here. And the person, when all the dots have been connected up, the person with the most complete squares wins. So can I have someone who is happy to and comfortable using the annotations to just, we won't complete the whole thing, but just to sort of illustrate and show how it works. So if someone can just come on for me now using their annotations, click on draw, select a different color to pink, and draw a line, perhaps connect, well, you can connect it wherever you want. So basically connect the dots. You can't go diagonal, that's the only thing. So we can have someone to do that in a different color, please. I'll just give you a minute. And then we'll get in and just play the game very quickly. It's very addictive. And as I say, I know children who have played this for hours and hours at a time. If we can get someone in to play. Don't know if there's someone there. It might be quite hard to do this on a mobile phone. So it might be easier if you're on a tablet or a computer screen, a PC screen to do it. It might be quite difficult. I don't know how, you know, sometimes the menus can not be that easy to go. So if we've got someone who can play, we've got someone who can draw. If you go to draw and then connect up, we've got someone who can do that. If we haven't, don't worry, I'll just show you very quickly. Nope. Okay, not to worry, it's a bit fiddly on the computer. So I'm going to select a blue line and go like that. And then I'm going to go back and select a pink like that. So there we go. So that means the person who's playing blue, oh, hang on, there we go. So they will have completed that box. And then what they do is they put their initials, or in this case, we'll just put a heart in like that. And then basically you keep going until all the dots are connected up and they make squares. And then you count up however many boxes you've got. And the person with the most boxes wins the game. So there we go. So that's another really good and quick, and literally all you need there are a sheet of dots. And the good news is I've put one of those together for you in the handout as well. So let's carry on. Right, so I've got lots more activities for you. Just bear with me again. That one, there we go. Right, so that's box the dots. So the next activity we've got, right, here we go. So this is a really good one. This is called a boredom buster lucky dip. Now what we're trying to avoid here are children saying I'm bored. Now it is actually okay for children to be bored, believe it or not, because there's lots of evidence which talks about how when they, although they feel bored, if you give them what's called free play, then they will find things to do and it will stimulate their creativity and their imagination. But sometimes, particularly younger children, they might need just a little bit of help. And what I've got here, and I have one here, which is called a Boredom Busters Lucky Dip jar. Now you could put it in a pot or a jar, whatever you want to do. So you can do what I've done and you can write ideas for play ideas on lollipop sticks, or you can just fold up pieces of paper and pop them in the jar. Now it's a really good idea to get your child involved in this as well and get them to come up with activity ideas as well, so they've got some sort of ownership over the lucky dip jar. And basically I've put just a few ideas here. You've got things like rearrange your bedroom, build something which floats, paint flower pots, make a word search game, and so on. And I've got one here. I don't know if you can see how well that is on there. And it says create junk band music, or create music from junk. Now, I just want to show you just how easy this is. So, you know, I said about having a box of tricks, basically, or a bag of, you know, lids and rubber bands and things like this. I'm going to show you some of the things that I've made with children already. Now then, here, and we did this and we actually created some music, so I'm going to show you some of these. So here's some of the ideas that I've got here. So this is a jar lid from a jar, some rubber bands and a lollipop stick, and basically it does, you probably won't be able to hear it that well, but it does actually play, say, a lovely sound. We have a piece of cardboard with some metal tops, and we clip them together. There we go. And they're like little sort of castanets, which make a great sound for music. We've got these, which are little hairpins on a piece of polystyrene, and they make some beautiful sounds actually. And we've even got plastic straws. So if you put them together like this, you see, then they make a like that. So what we've done here is this is just to show you that this does actually work. I'm going to make sure that I am sharing, I'm going to stop just for a second, make sure I am sharing my sound with you, which I'm sure I am. Nope, there we go, glad I checked that. So I want you to listen to this, and this literally, so you can see all these items here. We've got CDs, plastic straws, cardboard, lid tops, rubber bands, and so on. And this piece of music I'm going to show you, which is only a few seconds long, was made using just these instruments. So have a listen to this and see what you think. Helps if I click on the right one, doesn't it? There we go. Wow, it's obviously only a short piece, but that was made literally just with those pieces. I think we had some glasses with or bottles with water in, and the water were at different levels. So when you tap on it, it sounds slightly different. So you get different sort of levels of music notes, different sort of musical notes. So that was, I think, something extra we also put in. But, you know, what a great idea. And I think that took the best part of a half a day to make those, and it was great. And the feeling of achievement the children had when they actually got to create their music at the end, and they created these, you know, really simple oops, really, really simple little banjos here, little guitar type instruments. So, you know, that's a great activity to include in your boredom busters jar. Okay, so they can't say I'm bored, say just go to your lucky dip, pick something out, and off you go. So we've also got another activity for you. I'm just keeping my eye on the time. We're okay at the moment. Create a story. Now, I have put together the story cards for you on the handout. All you need to do is cut out each card and put them in a separate bag. So you've got a bag for characters, a bag for settings, and a bag for objects. And the idea is your child picks out one random card from each of the bags, and they create a story based on the character, the setting, and the object that they've selected. So you have 16 cards in every bag. So there's absolutely no end of possibilities of stories that they can create. And here we've got a robot in outer space with a drum. So it'll be really interesting to see. This is a great one if you've got, you know, 2 or 3 children for you to play with. So the story cards are there on the handout for you to download and cut out and use, so you haven't got to create them yourself. Some of you may have heard of a game called Don't Touch the Lava. Basically, you can either use coloured circles of card, or if you haven't got any coloured card, just use cushions, as long as you're happy for your cushions to be stood on briefly for a little while. The idea is that you place those circles, or all those cushions, around the room, and anything that basically isn't a cushion or a circle is hot lava. So your child can't actually step on it. They mustn't touch the lava because it'll be boiling hot. It's a great game for imagination as well. The twist to this game is it becomes a race to rescue some of the items that you've placed close to the lava. Now, this is a little sneaky trick here for parents. If your child is learning particular words or numbers at school, why don't you leave those letters or those words or those numbers? Those are the things they have to rescue, and letters are great to create a particular word. Or if you want, for a bit of a treat, you could leave particular food items around which make up your child's favourite treat. So it's Don't Touch the Lava, but with a twist which has a little bit more of a sort of educational slant in it, and it's a little bit more challenging. If you want to do super challenging for older children, you need to put a timer on it as well and say, right, you've got 2 minutes to get around, rescue these items, create that, and not touch the lava. So again, minimal resources, really, very, very little that you need to set that one up really, really quickly. There are many other activities that I could talk about today, but we're running out of time. We've got the building blocks challenge. Now, if you're on a previous webinar with me, you'll know about these. So if your child loves building blocks and they've got Mega Blocks or Lego or something like that, use some sticky labels to put some, you can see here, put letters on, and then basically they have to hunt, oh, there we go, have to find the letters to create the word. It's a great buildings block challenge and really good to help develop literacy. There's also an activity called a reading star challenge. Now again, I've put this on your handout, so you'll have this to download. If you're concerned about, you know, really your child not really getting into reading, they're just not that interested, this is a great challenge for them to try out as well. Lots of different ways for them to try reading in a different way. And when they've achieved all that, you know, you can think about giving them a little reward perhaps for that as well. So there are many other things you can do, jigsaw puzzles, board games, blowing bubbles, indoor picnics, so many. And if you can, try and tap into your child's interests and into their natural abilities as well. So I've just thrown at you lots and lots of ideas for Screen 3 play for your child, and there are plenty more on your handouts as well, and of course in my book. But if you want to try a completely screen-free day, here are some top tips. I'm going to rush through these a little bit because I am conscious of time, and I know we've got some questions coming in, but I do want to go through these top tips of if you wanted to go for a whole day of screen-free play. Here's some of my top tips, and these are also in the handout as well. Follow my leader. What do I mean by that? What I was saying at the beginning, really, the more positive examples your child has of how adults are using technology and screen time, the better they will be able to follow that. So think carefully about how you're using your phone or your tablet or the TV, and include yourself when you're discussing particularly things like screen time allowances, and try and stick to those if you can. Don't be afraid of boredom. It is something that many parents are very fearful about. They're very fearful of their child saying, I'm bored, I haven't got anything to do. It is fine for children to have nothing to do. And if you hold your nerve on that, believe me, they will find things to do. Now, you cannot plan for every minute of every day of your child's day. It's not practical, and it's not healthy either. And children need that free time, but be patient. And as I said before, you've got your lucky dips, your boredom busters lucky dips that you can use, and also, you know, that box of everyday items that I've talked to, that could become their go-to box for free play. So putting together that handy box of everyday items is definitely going to help you if you want to go for a screen-free day of play. And also planning ahead. Now, the thing about this is about managing expectations as well. So discuss and agree as a family all about your screen-free day, and get your children thinking about what's that going to look like? What sort of things are they going to do? Let them use their imagination, and don't forget that box of bits and bobs. Now, it might seem a bit strange at first, but as screen-free time becomes more familiar, more regular in your family, it's going to become a much more regular part of family life as well. Now, a balanced day, most days are probably not going to be like that. Let's be realistic about it. Most days are not going to be completely screen-free, and that's absolutely fine. And a balanced day, well, that kind of depends, will vary from family to family, the children you have, and the age of them as well. How will you know if you're getting it right? You're going to feel much more confident in how your children are using their screens. There are going to be less tantrums and less complaints when you go to move from screen to screen-free play. And of course, what will happen over time is screen-free activities will become their go-to, rather than just sort of reaching for a phone or reaching for a tablet. So I'm just going to share my final top tips with you. Got lots of top tips in this session, and as I say, they're all on the handout as well. So the first thing to remember is build your screen time around other family activities, not the other way around. Okay, we want the screen time to be incidental to the other activities that you're actually doing. Make sure you discuss the boundaries of screen use, what you've negotiated, put that up on a sheet of, you know, what your screen-free allowance or screen time allowances are. But you do need to think about what you're going to do if those boundaries aren't, if they're crossed. And certainly as your child gets a little bit older, you might need to sort of do things like renegotiate those limits as well. Do think about your own screen use and how you model that behaviour. And of course, make face-to-face, real-time interactions as a family a priority. So those are my top tips. Now then, I've also got on your handout an action plan. We won't have time to go through this in an interactive way today, but it asks 4 questions, and these are the 4. So the first question is, how much of your child's screen time is used for entertainment? And you see you've got a scale here from 0 to 6, and the idea is you work through each question. Each question has the scale of 0 to 6. You work out where you are on there and where you'd like to be, and then you can put a plan of action together based on those results. So you've got how much of your child's screen time is used for entertainment, Does screen time get in the way of what you're doing as a family? So does it get in the way of things like meal times or talking together, for example? So you'll have another 0 to 6 scale there. How far do you feel screen time is disrupting your child's sleep? So again, another 0 to 6 scale. And then do you feel that snacking is controlled during your child's screen time? And again, you can answer all these questions and then work out your plan of action in terms of where you want to be on those uh, levels, on those scales. The other thing I've done is I put a link into something called a family media plan. Now, this won't be for everyone, but you can actually go online together as a family. You can have, 5 children, 4 adults, however, whatever combination you need. And you can create your own family media plan. And you can actually print that out and put that up on the fridge or up on the wall as well. It does require time and it does require conversation to complete it. But if you're really committed to making changes, I strongly advise you to go and look at it first on your own and then look at introducing that into the family and making your own family media plan. And I've mentioned before, how you know if changes are successful? Well, you decide on your own criteria, but as I've already said, feeling more confident, there should be less tantrums and complaints when your children don't have access to screens. So we had a little interruption there just towards the end of the webinar, so my apologies for that. So I'm just going to record this for you just as to complete the webinar as a whole. I'm sorry I didn't get to answer any questions directly, but I've asked the host to actually send them to me and I will provide you with a response. So I was just finishing there about the action plan and how you'll know if you're successful with that. So I really hope that you found that helpful. In terms of sort of questions and answers, there are a couple of questions that I do generally get asked quite a lot. And the first one is, I can't remove my child's digital tablet without from them without them having a tantrum. Help. And that is a fairly classic problem that we can have. And often what that means is your child's probably just become a little bit too reliant on using the screen for their entertainment. So the sort of things that I've been talking about earlier in terms of looking at what apps and games they do actually have on their screen and trying to make that shift from pure entertainment through to sort of much more interactivity and learning would be a really good place to start with that. If they're old enough, talk with them about a sort of balanced screen diet and actually getting to them to make good decisions about screen time. If they're quite young, then using things like the lollipop sticks that I talked about earlier and helping them actually manage their screen time. So one of these equals, say, 10-15 minutes of screen time, and they have 4 or 5 of those in a day, however many you want. And when they're gone, they're gone. You may need to be, as I said in the webinar, a little bit more flexible about how you manage that, just to begin with, to help your child understand about, how long 10 or 15 minutes actually is. But this is great for younger children because it makes it much more tangible for them to help them learn, how to manage their time on the screen. If you haven't got lollipop sticks, then things like plastic straws would work just as well. Another question I get is, my older child says that they're doing research for school on their tablets, but I know that they're playing games. What can I do? Yeah, that's a tricky one as well. Because obviously increasingly at the moment as well, during lockdowns and so on, children are having to do much more virtual learning. The best thing with this is to really show an interest in what they're learning. Sit alongside them, offer to help, get them involved in sort of real world activities. They are playing games, then try and make the connection between sort of what they're doing on the screen and real world activities. So, some of the apps that I talked about at the beginning where, you create something online and then you bring it into the real world. So trying to make connections like that would be Really important. And remember, not all screen games are bad at all. You know, check for the sort of educational interactivity, but the best thing you can do if you think they're not really telling the whole truth about how they're using their screen time, then is to sit alongside them, show an interest in their work as well, and get them to talk to you about what they're doing. So I hope you found that helpful. As I say, apologies for the interruption right at the end, and I was hoping to get to the questions, but I will answer them and get those done for you once they've been forwarded to me. So I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for coming along, and I do hope that you found it really helpful and enjoyable as well. So shukran and ma salama.